Warning, this project contains high voltage. I take no responsibility if you go... Welcome to FuzzyTek, the show where I, Fuzzy Manners, talk about technical, geeky, nerdy stuff. In this episode, I'll be continuing with the Nixie clock project by wiring up the Nixie sockets and building the enclosure. So far, I've built up a test project on a breadboard with some LEDs and spoken a bit about the code and what it does. As predicted, the code has changed since the last episode, as I have now also added buttons to set the time and date. So, without further delay, let's get to it. To host the chip from the Arduino, I've used a board from another project of mine, the Ep.3. The Ep.3 is an Arduino Uno compatible Ep.3 serial programmer board. I've only soldered the required components onto the board that will get the Atmega chip to run. So that's the chip socket, 16 MHz crystal, 2 capacitors and some headers for the pins. I don't need any extra programming headers or components as the chip will be programmed already from the Arduino, and I can always remove it from the socket at a later date if I need to reprogram it. To connect the components to it, I'll be soldering wires onto the required pins of these male pin headers, which will then plug straight into the board. These little brown plasticky things are the Nixie sockets. The tubes fit into them and hold them in place. It also makes it a lot easier for if I ever need to change a tube in the future. I can just pull it out and replace it. And here's one of the tubes that I'll be using. It's an IN12A Nixie. Next, I have this wooden box that I picked up on sale at a local home decoration store. I thought it was a good look for the Nixie clock with its rustic wood grain appearance. I've roughly drawn out the position that I want the tubes to be on the side of the box. This will be the front, with the bottom of the box being the top. I'll cut the box to a proper size and reuse the parts to make the clock later. I'll get back to the box later in the episode, but for now, let's wire up the Nixie sockets. I've chosen to solder wires to each of the terminals and heat shrink them to minimise the possibility for any short circuits and to strengthen the connection. The red wire is the common anode that will connect to the high voltage power supply to drive the Nixies. All the other terminals are cathodes and will connect to the Nixie chips, just like the LEDs from the breadboard test. There are 6 Nixie tube sockets, each with 12 terminals, so that's 72 terminals I need to get soldering. I best get to it. Now the sockets are soldered, I need somewhere for them to go, so I'm going to drill some holes in the middle of the pencil drawings I made earlier and start to work my way towards a hole for the socket to screw into. It was at this point I realised it would be easier to create 3 large holes and pair up the Nixies, rather than 6 individual ones. Sometime later, and probably some annoyed neighbours, it was ready for the tubes to be inserted. I've chosen to do this from the outside so it adds to the overall look, and also, as I never said I was any good at woodwork, and the rough edges reinforce this fact, it will hide my shoddy cutting. Now the sockets are all screwed in, I'll make holes for the divider lamps. These are neon lamps with a resistor attached to the anode. They will be used to separate the digits and will blink on and off. Once the lamps and all the tubes are in place, I'm left with a whole bird's nest of wiring inside the box. All the positive leads will be connected together and connect to the high voltage power supply, whilst all the other leads will go to the Nixie chips and the shift registers. The cathode legs from the lamps will be connected to the square wave output of the real-time clock. Part of the Arduino code tells the RTC to output a 1 Hz signal on its wave pin. This causes the divider lamps to blink on and off. Here it is demonstrated on the LED breadboard setup. Now that it's all fixed together, screwed in place and a spaghetti mess of wires inside, the next step is to find out which Nixie wire is connected to which digit and to start building and connecting together the insides. This will be done in a later episode, and that's it for this one, so until next time, thanks for watching and goodbye.